We already compared the first two games in these legendary PS2 trilogies, and now it's time for round 3. How much have these games evolved since their last installment, and which one stands on top? Let's take a look at each game individually, compare them to their predecessors, and finally pit them against each other. Which game is better? Let's blast things off with Up Your Arsenal, which keeps the puns going strong, but sadly got pegged by Peggy. The game starts sometimes after going commando, with Ratchet and Clank peacefully playing their version of chess when they see the news of a planet being attacked. Being heroes, they jump into action and set off. It seems a new villain called Dr. Nefarious is waging wars against planets, trying to turn everyone into robots, which is a bit odd since he's using organic life forms to fight, and that's not the only thing strange about his plan. However, I'll talk about that when I get to the game's ending. Our hero joins the team to fight back, and they learn that there was one man who was able to stop Nefarious before. Who could this mysteriously specific shaped man be? It's Captain Quark. We rescue him, and he's given command of the team, even though he thought he was a monkey not just 5 minutes ago. He's definitely the guy who fails upwards in life. We still have fun interactions with our cast, with jokes that match the game's title.
It was mating season. How could I have known she was your sister?
They brought back a lot of the old characters like Skid McMarks, Helga von Steisenbergen, and my favorite one, the Plumber. Even the new characters hold their own, with Dr. Nefarious and his butler having a fun dynamic, and of course, with any media in the 2000s, we get a Britney Spears parody with Courtney Gears. Let's now jump ship into the gameplay. So, how much had it changed? You still jump and shoot with a bunch of overpowered weapons. Why fix what isn't broken? They kept a lot of the features, and one of the features you had to unlock from the last game was added straight from the beginning, like first person mode. However, they did add a couple of new things, like a lock-on mode. This will make it so Ratchet is always strafing. It gives you the R1 button to shoot, giving it a more modern third-person shooter feel with better precision in aiming. I stuck with this mode as I was constantly in strafing mode in the last game. I just like being able to be precise in my shooting games. Speaking of combat, let's talk about the guns. There is a mix of new and returning guns you can use. Just like the last game, if you have a save file of the previous game, you receive the returning guns for free. However, if you have a save file of Ratchet and Clank 1, all the weapons and ammos will have an employee discount to former Gadgetron employees who have been with the company for 2 years, which was talked about in the first game. And it's been 2 years between the first and Up Your Arsenal's release date. There's even a quality of life upgrade that you can buy ammo for all the guns in one click, instead of each one individually. The transition of having to select the amount of ammo to buy for each gun, to give you the max amount for each gun from the start, to just letting you buy all the ammo you're missing, does show a cool progression in quality of life for players. They even let you try out the guns before you buy them. Didn't feel the need to do this since I was planning to buy every gun and level them up, but it's nice to have. Leveling up guns while using them is still here, but they can go up to level 5 now. With every new level, the gun gets a modification to it, so it's fun to upgrade them and see what crazy new thing the gun will do, even the bad ones. Sadly, there are a few weapons that are not the best, like the flame whip that does little damage. You have to be close to use it, and it's a melee weapon with ammo. Why use this when I have a long range weapons that do more damage while not risking hurting myself with touching enemies? I was especially disappointed with the shield. I like playing defensive, and shields always feel underwhelming in most games, and this one is no exception. I do think they made it too small in this game to be useful for anything, although I can always have it available when I think I will need it, since they doubled the number of slots you can have in quick select. Once you're on the menu, you can hold one of the shoulder buttons to go to a different page where you select for more weapons. Nice to have all these slots since you will be using some of them for support items. Slingshot is back, and it's still an item you have to equip to be able to use it. But they did combine it with another utility weapon. They again changed the minigame that you play when hacking. They moved away from the puzzle aspect of it, and it became more of a reflex game. I think the game mode is fine, and I think changing it up is a good idea. I just don't like how long this one takes compared to the last one. It's one of the smaller changes that was a bit odd to me, but the additions that were underwhelming were the new crates. They included 2, and the one that was more understandable to me was the multiplier box. This one would double the amount of bolts you can collect for a short time. I won't complain about being able to get more money, but it felt redundant with how this game showered you with bolts. It does become more impactful after you beat the game, but the one I thought was unnecessary was the Inferno box. If you break them, you go into this invincible mode for a short time where nothing will hurt you, but you're only able to use the wrench in this mode. It's a usual mechanic in many games to give you a limited but invulnerable state to attack, but they're usually something you can access whenever you're in a pinch, and the weapons in this game are just so powerful that you feel hindered by having to go up to enemies to attack them. Especially when the guns have explosive and a bunch of effects compared to the wrench just thwacking them. He does look cool double wielding, but it does throw a wrench into the gunplay. The game puts these crates where they would be most useful to the player. While that is good game design, the levels themselves are not as interesting as the last game. It's a lot more linear in the structure compared to the previous game. I do feel like this was done to help the people who played in lock-on mode, since platforming is more difficult in this mode than the usual one. They did bring back some of the other gameplay styles, like the Clank sections, and you only play one level with Giant Clank. The levels that you play as regular Clank were toned down to reduce the puzzle aspect of these sections and make it more action-packed. The variety of little gremlins was removed, and they added a monkey. You can now shoot a banana to have the monkey go to a specific spot to get past certain obstacles. However, they completely removed the racing and spaceship sections. You can still customize the spaceship, but it's for aesthetic purposes during the loading screen. They just didn't take away modes, but added a few. You can play a video game that features Captain Quark. This is used to tell how Captain Quark was able to defeat Dr. Nefarious and their backstory. You control Quark in a 2D side-scroller where you can jump, punch, and shoot. It's not very in-depth, but it's a change of pace. The only downside is that these sections are mandatory to progress the story. Since we're currently at war with Dr. Nefarious, there are some planets where you can do missions. These are small objectives where you help the robots fight off the wave of enemies. You have to go and try to take over a base down a path, or you're given a small area to destroy or capture multiple targets. You can be on foot, but sometimes you're given a vehicle to use, between a car or a UFO. These missions do fit well with the story, but they're usually relegated to side missions, usually extra things you can do after you finish the level. It's very similar to the arena battles that are back in this game, and they work the same way. You do challenges that increase in difficulty that change something about them. There are even more in this game compared to the last one. They even added another one called VR mode. It looks like it's supposed to train you since this way you train for the slingshot, but all the other missions are similar to arena battle. Not sure why they felt the need to make VR missions separately from the arena battles. A lot of these new modes are combat centric, making it even more preferable to play in lock-on mode. You even get this cool addition where the game slows down to make the combat more dramatic, which is I want to say, but it took me a while to realize that the slowdown was not a feature, but a bug. It did impact a few areas, and I thought it was an issue with the game until I did a bit of research. I played the game on a backup and I could not find the correct settings to stop the game from lagging. This is just a backup issue, as there was a bit of slowdown on the original disc, but greatly reduced. I don't think it was much of an impact in my overall playthrough, and it's not an issue on the HD collection either, which is how most people will probably play these games. The only spot where the lag becomes almost unbearable is the sewer levels, where you're going to collect the crystals. But this is more of an endgame side mission to do. Speaking of the ending, let's talk about it. There's a hidden final vidcomic that explains Quark never defeated Dr. Nefarious, but escaped his capture and ran away from him. These vidcomics do explain the history between Quark and Nefarious, but one thing they never explained was why he feels the need to convert everyone into robots. In the end, you fight Nefarious in 2 rounds, and the first phase is a fight against him on the ground. And in the next one, you're controlling the UFO. Once you defeat him, you unlock the new Game Plus. It's similar to the last game where you get the bolt multiplier that goes up to 20. If you break one of those multiplier crates, you can go above the 20 limit for a short period. Guns can now be upgraded above level 5 to level 8 if you buy the mega version of them. The Rhino version 3 makes a comeback in this game, and it's just as devastating as ever. Skill points are back with their secret missions. These points can be used to unlock cheats. Not sure how they're considered cheats when you unlock them. Big bolts make a comeback and they unlock costumes for you to use in game, with some of them looking better than others. If you ever get bored with the single player, you can go into the multiplayer. This is the first Ratchet and Clank game that had multiplayer. Not only is it the first game to include online play on the PS2, but also the first game ever I played online. Sadly, the servers are down and you can't play it even in the HD collection. However, if you have a buddy, you can enjoy it with local multiplayer. It's similar to the mission mode in the single player, where you have to take certain spots and then destroy the enemy main's base. You can pick up weapons on the grounds or by taking bases. Depending on the level, you can have a car or a UFO to help you. It feels like the single player missions were made as practice for the online. If you're one of the lucky few to own a multi-tap, you can plug it in, and even more rare, have 3 other friends who'll be willing to play with you, you can play 4-player multiplayer. Oddly enough, these were not the only multiplayer modes. If you input a cheat code while playing the vid comic, you can unlock a 2-player fighting game called Ninja vs Pirate, or even unlock a Bomberman style game with our heroes. If you want to get away from Ratchet and Clank gameplay and characters even more, you can play a tech demo of Sly 2 by inputting a cheat code on the main menu. It's surprisingly a lengthy demo as well, so you can enjoy and try playing as the Sly Cooper gang. I think my favorite hidden secret in this game is the Insomniac Museum. Here's what I believe to be a recreation of the Insomniac studio, and you can see scrapped ideas for the game. I think this is such a cool idea, but one odd thing is the way to unlock it. You can unlock it normally by collecting all the golden trophies and having permanent access to it, or you can find this teleporter in Metropolis, which does not work for some reason. This one will take you to the museum, but only works during the hours of 3 and 4 AM. So you can grab a couple of Doritos and Red Bull to wait until time hits, or you can do what I did and just change the console's timer. I had fun playing this game. It's very similar to the last game, but it leans heavily on combat. The new lock-on mode, missions, and level design seems to be built mostly with the gunplay in mind instead of creative platforming. I do think this was a step in the right direction because the game's biggest strengths are its weapons. It could also be that another focus for this game was the online, and combat became a more important component. Now, let's look at how Jack decided to follow up in Jak 3. It's interesting that they kept Daxter's name out of the title, and that they went with the number 3, not in Roman numeral form. The game starts with our hero Jack being banished from Haven City. These games know how to start with a big moment to catch your attention, I see. It has been a year since the last game, and they have been at war with the Metalheads ever since the last game. The palace in the city is destroyed, and the citizens are blaming Jack for its destruction and the war with the Metalheads. In the end, he was banished from the wastelands by a councilman where he will most likely die, but he received a beacon. A man named Damas comes to rescue him and tell him that he must show that he is worth enough to have been saved. So he puts him to the test in the gladiator pits, having him fight other combatants to the death. I feel like this place could have a small population issue. We're also introduced to a character called Seams who warns of the coming of the Daystar. The gladiator pit is where the tutorial of the game starts, and it's very similar to the last game. As you progress, you will notice that they have additional guns, sort of. You get the same 4 guns from the last game, but each one has 2 additional modifiers that can make them feel unique. Like the shotgun now has a pulse wave you use, or the light machine gun has a laser cannon. Sadly, they still don't have strafing, making it difficult to aim with the weapons. However, just like the last game, the blaster is always there for you, and they made it even better. The second mod for this gun allows for bullets to ricochet off enemies and walls. As long as you're shooting, those bullets are gonna hit somebody. It would even hit enemies I had no idea where they were, or even enemies I hadn't reached up in the level yet. The only downside is that every ricochet costs ammo, but you usually won't run out. Speaking of weapons, Jack's Dark Eco makes a return in this game. It works similarly to the last game, but they also added the other side of the coin, Light Eco. It's the first time they brought it back since the first game, and you use it besides being a cutscene. While the Dark Eco is used for offense, the Light Eco is more defensive or utility based. You get the power to heal, slow down time, get wings from multiple air jumps, and a shield. These abilities are very situational, and I rarely use them unless I had to. There are even more varied sections and minigames in this game. We have an on-rail, spaceship, one screen, glider, turret, the Big Mac, and even Pac-Man. But the one you'll be doing a lot in this game is driving the car. Level design was changed in this game, and one of the biggest additions to it was the desert car. You can use it to travel around the desert to do missions while chasing things, racing, exploring, and even combat. I thought it would have the same issue as traveling in Jak 1, but this game is much better with this. For one, there are not that many missions that require you to travel far to the destination. They also added bandits in the desert who attack you because that's what they do. Destroying one of the bandits' car will give you a boost that will help you shorten the time you needed to get to your destination. But they're the most annoying enemy as there are more obstacles to slow you down in time missions and become more of a nuisance than anything else. It does not help that the car somehow maneuver like it's on ice with how much they slide around, causing you to lag behind on chase or timed missions. I do like that some of the cars have their gimmicks, such as the grasshopper one that jumps super high. However, this was the only one that was unique in its design. The others felt more like a difference in durability versus speed than a unique ability to them. The desert is not the only place where you will be traveling. There is a small desert city where you start. It's a small hub area. I do like that everyone is walking around with guns, and if you hit one person, they just start blasting at you. It does add to the gladiator city this place has going for it. I still worry about the population declining here though. Speaking of population decline, you do get to back into Haven City as well. They have cut down on the side of the city because it's being attacked by metalheads, and some areas have been changed with them taking over or damaging the city. You still collect the gems from the metalheads, but they're used for side missions. You still have the panels around the towns and city, but you have to spend metalhead gems to activate them. Panels are sadly the same as the last game, with over 70% of them finding these hidden spots within a time limit. I don't want to wander around and have to memorize everything just for these side quests. The main missions should take place in these cities than just me flying by them to just get to my next location where I do the actual gameplay. You get precursor orbs like in the last game, but they do have better rewards. Once collected, they could be spent on upgrades for your weapon, bonus content, new vehicles, and cheat codes. Seems you also unlock cheats in this game. I do like the gun upgrades as they have an impact on your gun, giving you an incentive to find them. One of the cheats is a reference as you play through a gun course, but it's themed after Ratchet and Clank characters. Most people will be messing with the cheat codes and bonus content unlocks usually after they beat the game. The ending does wrap a lot of the game's story very well. It seems like the councilman who banished Jack from the city wanted to become a precursor. These amazing, ancient, revered people. And we find out it's whatever Daxter is. A rather fun twist, and our villain gets exactly what he wanted. We learned a bit more about Jack as well, with his father being Damas, which I did not see coming. Maybe in the next scene we'll learn about Jack's mom? Who knows? It seems that the Daystar is a ship made from precursors who were corrupted by Dark Eco. Once we destroy the ship, Ero, the leader of the KG Deathbots, who are a splintered off group from the KG in the second game. This game does have some lore to it. Anyways, he was on board and took a machine before it blew up and started rampaging around the desert with it. This machine is annoying to fight since it's hard to be precise in shooting the blobs on the legs because you're controlling this slippery car. You have to know where it's going so you can preemptively know where to shoot the leg. You have to time it so you can hit the blob before it picks up its legs. Hope the auto aim is in your favor. And worst of all, some of the blobs are in the front of the leg, so you better be fast to get to them and aim. Once you defeat the robot, you face him again on top of the machine as Jack. The fight is not very difficult. Once you defeat our heroes, celebrate, and to wrap it up, they turn a girl that likes Daxter into a precursor thingy. Jack looks like he will be leaving on an adventure with the precursors, but decides to stay, and Daxter finally gets some pants. There's not much to do after beating the game besides all the panel missions, which is more of a memorization game. I have to say, this game was fun and is better than the second game. The second game relied heavily on the guns and the city, which I found were not as engaging to carry the entire game, and there are not many reasons to change from the blaster besides running out of ammo. The game went with a variety approach by giving you a variety of gameplay styles and giving you some breathing room between shooting sections. They cut down on traveling by a good amount and even made it more interesting by having some obstacles. So, which game is better? It's interesting playing both games as I feel like they went in opposite directions and they benefited from it. Ratchet and Clank does not have many different gameplay types and focuses more on combat and weapons, which is the draw of the game. While Jak 3 varied its gameplay with many unique modes since its gunplay is not able to engage someone for the entirety of the game. Jak 3 has a more engrossing, gritty setting, different gameplay styles, and a story with depth to it. I feel like Jak as a series, starting with the second game, has some very interesting twists and story premises to it. While Ratchet and Clank 3 does have decent story, it mostly shines in its gameplay, blasting through waves of enemies and causing destruction everywhere you go. So many weapons and ways to play, even if some are better than others, are all easily playable since the game is not difficult to play. In the end, I still think Ratchet and Clank 3 is the better game, as its gameplay is refined to take advantage of its known gimmick of the crazy overpowered guns. It's a game that you know when you pick up and play, you know what you're getting into. Jak 3, while a good game, felt like an accumulation of a lot of different gameplay ideas, and it felt like a jack of all trades but a master of none. This does help in its own way since the gunplay, its main mechanic, still is not engaging enough by itself. I still think these are great games that deserve a playthrough on their own. Which of the two games do you think is better? If you want to see more videos like this, subscribe, and if you haven't, go watch my other Ratchet and Clank vs Jak and Daxter videos I already made. But as always, my lovely patients, I thank you so much for watching, and tune in next time. Bye.